Hello everyone and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet to still be on the PSN. I'm Will and joining me this week, Brandon.
I'm all yours, Dad.
Ills.
I don't know how to follow that. That's very creepy.
And Muzamil.
I wish we were a theme park podcast.
We might be soon. Who knows? We will brave the COVID-19 world to go see Super Nintendo World in Japan. We won't actually.
Don't worry, I'm first in line for a vaccine. I have a pretty good reason. I want to go to Super Nintendo World. They're gonna fast track me, you know.
That's the best reason. They should fast track everybody for that.
You know.
So you know we'll talk about that later because you lead with the controversy. You know, you with the headlines, New York Times editor, you say you lead with controversy, and boy oh boy, do we have some controversy surrounding Cyberpunk 2077 and its developer / publisher CD Projekt Red. Where to begin with this game? So you may have heard of this title. It was only the most pre-ordered PC game of all time. 8 million people bought this game day one, and let me tell you, what they received may not have been what they thought they were getting. And that is because the game, to put it kindly, is on fire. Specifically on fire for last-gen systems, right, in particular. And we can get to a lot of different parts of this, but it's worth noting throughout all this, remember, originally, this game was going to come out in April. There was never going to be a next gen. There was only going to be PS4 and Xbox One versions. But we move our minds back to the 10th of December, right? And along the way, we get first reviews for Cyberpunk, and so the game's at like a 92, right? People are saying, hey, there's bugs, we're hitting problems, right? But we've been assured they'll be patched out in a day one patch. And then people noticed, hey, wait, every version that is getting reviewed is just the PC version. And then you say, well, that seems weird. And then eventually that leads to the situation when the actual copies of the PS4 and Xbox One versions get in the wild of, oh, maybe they were hiding these. Maybe they were hiding these versions, but only giving reviewers next gen or PC copies. And to the point where now if you go on the OpenCritic page, they straight up say, we believe CDPR was being dishonest in how they presented this game and its review scores. So unless you're playing this on a high-end PC, don't take this seriously. Which is crazy for the website whose main business is aggregating reviews to say that, right? But that is the first in a step of several, where about 48 hours after launch, after it's sort of getting bigger and bigger, CDPR comes out and makes a statement. And they say, hey, we know we messed up, you guys. We're sorry. We're going to make it better. But if you're upset now, you can get a refund by contacting Sony or Microsoft. And when I first saw that, I thought, oh, they must have had some conversation with Sony and Microsoft to have this happen. That's crazy. Turns out they just didn't have that conversation. So instead, Sony and Microsoft's customer service lines were inundated all day with requests for refunds that they had no idea was going to happen. And that's particularly a problem for Sony because Sony has a very strict refund policy. Unless they consider a game to be defective, you can't get a refund, right? So what they had to make the decision to do ultimately is say, hey, we want to refund this game, so we are declaring Cyberpunk 2077 defective on PlayStation systems. It will be taken down from the store, and if you want a refund, it will be given no questions asked. And then on the day of the recording of this podcast, Xbox has joined in, right? They're not delisting it because the refund policy is different, right? And now Best Buy is refunding physical copies that people are willing to bring to the store. And that sort of is where we are. But all the things I've said are unprecedented for a AAA game. This has never happened before, right? So sort of, I just want to leave it open to the floor now of like, how do you think we got here? And like, why is it such a big deal in particular that Cyberpunk is a mess?
I mean, this is a big AAA release. One of the most hyped fucking games that we've had since the last.
From one of the most hyped publishers.
Yeah,
we've had.
I mean, they made what was until Breath of the Wild like one of the consensus games of the generation, right? The Witcher 3 was so fucking lauded, is so fucking lauded, right? It's just people call it one of the most amazing games ever. The follow-up to The Witcher 3, no matter what it was going to be very hyped, right? And so this game, extremely hyped. And not just from the gamers, who CDPR loves to address, dear gamers.
We can get to that too.
But they also were very, very hyped by investors.
Yeah.
Like, the stock price of CDPR between the release of The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 skyrocketed because there was so high expectations for this game. I mean, you said it had 8 million pre-orders, right? So clearly the expectations were justified in a sense, right? But then the game turned out to be a dumpster fire. And I don't know, the game might be good underlying it all, but these are not issues you can ignore, clearly, because to the point where the game got delisted, that has never happened before. The only time games get delisted are because of rights issues, or because there's a loophole that lets you hack into the system, and it usually happens to, like, indie games, or small games, or
things you've never heard of.
Yeah, but, like, a AAA release, big, huge AAA release, the most pre-ordered game, that's the game that, like, within a week gets delisted. That's insane, we've never seen anything like it. Like, and we've had a lot of rough launches over the course of this generation. We got Fallout 76, Assassin's Creed Unity, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Anthem, the list goes on and on, right? Not a single one of those got delisted, Yeah. Not a single one of those. This is they managed to they went from making one of the best games of the generation to the biggest shit show of this generation. Period. Like, just period. You cannot compare anything else. This makes Fallout 76 look like a functional game at launch,
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's the thing, is part of, I think, what has made this catch on is the about face, right, of goodwill. Because for a long time, CDPR was one of the most well-liked developers in games, right? And they did it.
The gamers.
They are for the, and they love to be like, they ended trailers with, "We'll be out when it's ready." Right? That kind of tone of like, we know you hate unfinished games, and we are aware of that too. We hate it too. And then, lo and behold, here we are, right? This, these versions of it, don't worry, not only are we going to be putting out the current gen, we'll be giving you the free next gen patch. And suddenly it's like, well, now actually the current gen versions don't work, so that next gen patch doesn't mean much of anything, now does it? Right? And even insofar as we can get to this, we sort of, a lot has happened with Cyberpunk. I was sort of waiting till it came out to sort of envelop it, right? They spent a very long time, especially back in 2017 and 2018, when Naughty Dog and Rockstar were getting a lot of guff for crunch, rightfully so, saying, we are a crunch-free developer. We do not crunch. We now know from reporting,
what a fucking lie.
Huge lie, that not only was it crunch because of delays, even in the build up to the April release, they were crunching, and they've been crunching essentially from early to late 2019 to early 2020, all the way to now, and it will almost certainly continue into 2021 to try to fix the dumpster fire that is the game, right? And
apparently the board said like it was complete in January for some reason. So
yeah, they were telling people that this game was complete in January, right? Then I think that's the worst part of all, right? Is that they were so obnoxious about it's coming out in April. It's definitely coming out in April, right? But I don't even mean obnoxious to us. I mean obnoxious to the people who work there. They justify the crazy crunch with it's coming. Look, we're at the finish line, right? And then the finish line kept moving, but their hours were never adjusted in that way, right? So like these guys have been working 100-hour weeks since the beginning of the year.
Mandatory 6-day weeks.
Yeah,
I mean that is just ridiculous, especially for it to come from the company who was so smug about we don't crunch and we don't, blah blah blah, and for all of that, and you still release like the buggiest, like most piece of shit launch that we've seen,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a complete and utter failure on the management of CD Projekt Red. You know,
Yeah.
just a complete and utter failure.
Because there's a lot of bridges that have been burned simultaneously, right? There's not only the bridge to that hardcore audience, right? And they were a fervent fan base to the point of being toxic sometimes, right? Like a couple of reviewers who gave the game low scores in that build up, right? Who said the bugs are so bad, like the game isn't everything it was made out to be, got a lot of, awful stuff done to them, right? Suddenly, no, those same people are like, we were totally wrong, actually. The reviewers were totally right on this, right? They were the most honest of anyone about this game, right? But like, and there's conversation, but what about, how does the game that launches in this state get a 92, right? And part of it is, like I said earlier, they gave them the only version of the game that was the best possible version of the game, right? They specifically also asked, do you have a high-end PC? If you do, you'll get they got review copies early so that performance wouldn't be an issue in the reviews because their bonuses are tied to getting a 90 on Metacritic, right? So they had monetary reason to try to be disconcerting about this, right? And to try to hide this stuff away as much as possible. And what that ties to also the same place is like this player base is now burned, right? And Sony and Microsoft are burned, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think, frankly, this delisting happens if CDPR didn't do what they did to Sony and Microsoft over the weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean, how the fuck do you fuck up communication like that between like two of the biggest platforms there are?
Yeah.
How do you do that? That's just so unconscionable.
How is that even like? How did you even like authorize? Like, not authorize. They clearly didn't have the ability to authorize shit, right? But like, how did you sign off on this post being like, yeah, you could totally get a refund from anywhere? You know, like, no, you can't. You absolutely cannot, right? And then you think about like all the fucking customer service reps that had to deal with that nightmare. Right? Mm-hmm. Of people demanding refunds, and it's like, oh, but company policy doesn't actually let us do a refund, right? But but then the developer is saying we're supposed to, then what do I do? And that's just a whole mess in of itself.
God,
right?
I feel really bad for those people. Being a customer service rep myself, I feel really bad for those people.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And it's just like, you know, they just fucked over so many people here.
And like, think, like we said, like this game is going, outside of COD, was potentially going to be one of the best selling games of the year, right? And Sony and Microsoft get a 30% cut of every copy sold, right? Think about how much money they are leaving on the table by choosing to take this down, and they thought that is the smarter decision than letting the radiation coming off of this game bleed onto you.
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy, because you look at games that, like, Sony has not nearly as much as Nintendo in terms of, like, just letting crappy games get put on their console. But there's a bunch of them, right? Mm-hmm. Like, just really, really bad, almost PS2 graphics, like, just crap games that people just shit out for a quick buck,
Yeah.
And those there's no quality control. Those can stay up. That's fine. Because it's not giving them that bad press, They're just... They don't matter, so they can release them, and that's fine. I think it's more about that than it is about necessarily quality control, and that the game is crappy. It's just you're making.
Well, the game also, to be fair, from a quality control standpoint, is also a nightmare. Right?
It's also bad.
Like the game crashes your console.
Well,
right?
that's
like
that was specifically what Sony said.
Yeah,
sorry.
Like, there's so many actual hardware issues that relate to Cyberpunk when you're playing this game on a last-gen system.
Yeah. Because that was what Sony said specifically, was it failed certification. And there was sort of a lot of unclear as what certification means, right? Does that mean it's buggy or what?
Yeah, I mean...
But what it specifically refers to is, does it affect the console? Does it crash the console? Does it ruin UI? Could it potentially brick a system, right? Because you can put out bad games, but if those bad games are ruining your system, there is the problem, right? And the crashes were so frequent that And apparently what happened was Sony found those things in cert. CDPR said, don't worry, in a day one patch, they'll go away, right? It's the same answer they also said to reviewers. If you're finding problems, we have a big day one patch coming. And day one patches are a part of the reality of game development, right? They are a genuinely just useful resource because they let games have to go gold a month and a half before launch, right? And so you can use that month and a half before launch to iron out bugs that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, right? But the breach of trust of saying this will be there day one and it not being there for the second biggest release of the year makes suddenly, every company after this, you suddenly is going to have to try to prove themselves more because of the lack of trust that is done because of this game, right? And I think that is crazy and of note that we don't know how much the ripple effect this will have beyond CDPR and Cyberpunk in general, but there's also stuff that comes down to the game of, things that I remember just from watching the Nightwire things they would do, right? That feature cutting happens in games, right? Sometimes think you can implement a thing and you say we can't do it, right? But even so there's a lot of that in Cyberpunk, right? You might remember one of the very first gameplay showcases they had, wall running heavily featured as a thing you could do. It's gone now, right? There was a subway system. That's gone now, right? A bunch of stuff is gone now. But even then, they had promises that came to things like, look at the AI. They showed that was a big thing they showcased at E3 2 years ago. And even from launch. And they said every character, every NPC will have their own routine, their own schedule. We will have the most complex AI that we've ever put in a video game. And you can find videos now, it is incredibly simplistic. The AI seemingly was too taxing the way they had it set up to be able to operate. So instead they felt they just scrapped all that and put in the most basic version of it you could ever see, right? For example, if a character is trying to get to a point in a vehicle, they will not path out roads. They will just drive as the crow flies, so they'll just slam into a wall. And they'll just keep ramming into the wall, right? Stuff like that was solved in GTA 3 is a problem in this game.
I was going to say, that's just some basic shit. It's been around forever.
And what that shows
I just think
you
it's very funny that you use the phrase "as the crow flies," but okay, keep going.
I don't know how else to describe it, but I think that is proof that these developers, well, there was a lot of turnover from Witcher 3 to this game, but they're not idiots, right? They know how to program AI, right? Beyond that. But clearly, the management of this game was such a disaster, they didn't have time to even implement something as basic as that. Duct tape and it barely hold this thing together, right? And it can hold anything together. I think it is, I don't want to rant and rave too much because we try to avoid that type of discourse on this podcast. But I think it is. 2020's had a lot of messes in the video game industry, right? Just a lot of weird things that have happened and you're oh, that was this year? Good Lord. But they just came in at the last possible minute and sort of you can't help.
Showed us who's the king.
Yeah, it's the Al Bethesda's Bethesda, which is quite an achievement, right? And sort of follows that same legacy, I guess, right? Because Bethesda was the most beloved developer before this.
Yeah.
They're just trying to make Bethesda look good,
They appreciate it.
I don't with the slightest bit of charity. I wonder how much COVID played into this, but I feel like they were overpromising way too much.
Man, and this was also supposed to be out in April again, right? So this was fucking
yeah.
This was an 8-month delay, right? Then they delayed it to November, then they delayed it again to December, right? And I have to, I heard so many people say before this got delisted. And I guess you could say hindsight 2020, but they had to release the holiday season, A fucking delay to 2022 would have been better than this dumpster fire, right? This is a disaster.
Yeah. Because, it's funny because you can check their stock, you can see how this news is hurting them, and, rightfully so, right? You're not selling your game on one of the 3 biggest platforms in the world, right? And on the other one, you're getting full refunds, right?
And then, the word of mouth is garbage,
Yeah.
I will be shocked if Cyberpunk can rebound in any reasonable way, It just doesn't seem like these problems are so over the top and so ridiculous. I just don't even see how CDPR even begins to fix them, right? Because there's just so much wrong. Like, what condition, now that the expectations have been set because this game got delisted, like, what condition does the game have to be for them to even be back allowed on the PlayStation Store, you know? Like, does this need, like, Nintendo level polish now? Like, to get back on the store, you know?
And
nobody can pull that off.
I mean, I was kind of looking forward to this game, but now I'll wait for like a definitive edition and like PS5 or some shit. Like, it's gonna be a while.
I sincerely wonder if they can even get this thing running on PS4 though. Like, I wonder if do they just cancel that version? You know, like.
At this point, maybe they should, but
I feel like yeah, because I mean, and part of it is I wonder because different bugs are very different in like how easy or hard they are to squash, right? Or things you can patch, right? Because like, for example, briefly, like Link's Awakening on the remake, right? There was the frame rate problems anytime you load into a new area, right? And people said, well, why can't they just be patched out? It turns out to redo that would be to redo the entire engine, actually. It was foundational bugs, right? And so it's this thing that I wonder, like, how many of these things that if you really want to make it, like you said, the expectations are going to be so high they have to clear a very high bar now, like you said, Moose. How many of these things are foundational in a way that basically means you're remaking the game from scratch, right? Like, and I have no idea, but I imagine with the amount of them that are out there, a few of them will be that way, you know?
And the thing is, like, it's not even just the base consoles have the fucking worst of it by a wide margin. But, like, even the PC release seems bad. It's like Bethesda bad, right? Whereas the console versions is just undescribably bad, right? Where it's, like, to the extent we've never seen before, right? It makes Skyrim on PS3 look, you know, like it's fucking Mario Odyssey, you know? And that Skyrim PS3, at its launch state, it was inevitable that your game would delete, like your save, like it could not handle it anymore.
You had a 20-hour clock, and in that 20 hours hit, your game was inoperable.
Like there was a certain point in the game where you just literally could not play anymore. And this makes Skyrim on PS3 look good. That's how fucking bad this is, you know?
Why is there this really fucked up part of me that wants to get a copy of this game?
Run through it and refund it?
No, just I want a copy of it for like historical purposes on a base like PS4 and never update the game so you can show people out. Look at this game. Look at how it started. This is what they sold. Like, I feel like there's got to be some, you know, like there's going to be other people who want that as like a historical showpiece. Like, you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, I mean, I think I'm very curious about too, because like Moose, you mentioned at the very start of this, that there's a laundry list of games that had problems at launch, right? And some of those games recovered, right? Fallout 76 they published this week had its biggest player base ever, right? 2020 was actually a big year for Fallout 76, right? Similar like Elder Scrolls Online's turnaround, right? But you know, all these games, No Man's Sky,
good example.
Yeah, but the thing that those games share is one. They're like the things that people were missing was sometimes technical, but it was also features that like you would just want that were missing, right? But two, I think more importantly, they're online games, right? They're ones that are designed to be played over the course of months and years, right? For some of these, this is a game that is very finite, right? Is about half the length of The Witcher 3, right? In terms of length, you can in 30 hours you can turn out in a week if you really want to focus up, right? Like, I'm very curious how this type of game, how this can recover or not, right? Because, like, Assassin's Creed Unity secretly got a bunch of patches, but that game's just forever still viewed as being broken, right? And that was, I mean, in comparison, a smaller title than this, right? Like, I wonder if there is anything you can do to repair that image, because the other thing that separates an Ubisoft, a Bethesda, an EA from CD Projekt Red is they put out 3 to 4 games a year, right?
Yeah.
CDPR is one game every 5 years.
We know CDPR's next game. It is a multiplayer game based off Cyberpunk, which I'm going to guess, first of all, multiplayer game was never the kind of thing that the people who are looking for CDPR games, I don't think that's what they're interested in, number one. And number two, a multiplayer game based off of this shit show is, there
will be no generosity
yeah.
given to whatever things
so
are
like
enacted.
the next game for them to like potentially turn around their reputation after they finish that game, after they finish fixing this, so whenever that may be, and then shipping that multiplayer game, is I guess The Witcher 4. See you in like 7 years, right? And then even then, they're not gonna have the trust that they did going into Cyberpunk, right? They're not gonna have like it. People are not just gonna immediately pre-order and just assume that this game is gonna be game of the forever or whatever the fuck, right? Like there's no way I can see CDPR reasonably rebound anytime soon.
Yeah, I like you said, the situation that they're facing as a company is one that is the chance for redemption is 7 years off at a minimum. It feels like, right? And like it's hard to live that long with only bad press, like I don't know. I'm very curious to see how it operates. I mean, partially. Go ahead. Sorry.
Do we know how it operates on PS4 Pro and Xbox One X? Or
it
whatever?
Seems to be like so. The scale of things is like PC is where it's best, right? And it's like it's buggy, but it works and it's pretty-ish, I guess.
If you have high-end,
stuff,
PC.
yeah. If you have a next-gen system, like a Series X or an S or PS5, right, it's also still buggy, but the frame rate is stable, right? Whether that's a stable 60
the performance sort of
30,
isn't a problem.
But it is, you're running at a somewhat stable frame rate, but you're still encountering lots of bugs or crashes, right? If you're on a Pro or an X system, the frame rate is not so great, and also it's very buggy, and it's ugly, but not as ugly. And then you have the base consoles and like low-end hardware where it's just like dog shit, right? Like it's ugly, it runs like
15
shit.
FPS is the upper ceiling.
Your system's crashing every other second, like it's just, even at its best, it's not great, but like there's a lot of variance in there for sure. The PS4 and Xbox One just seem to, and like you see like textures not loading in at all, right? Like there's a funny picture that's going around about like Keanu Reeves. It's like
he looks like straight up from like an early 360 game.
Not even that looks
like Far Cry 1 maybe actually.
It looks so unbelievably bad. It's just, I mean, this game is a mess. This game is such a mess.
Well,
Keanu's not gonna be invited back to fucking.
You're not Keanu. You did this, and it's funny because
he's invited back with CDPR, isn't it?
It's funny because people say, "Oh, if I'm playing Cyberpunk, I'm gonna play on a next gen system anyway." But it's like that is such a small fraction of people buying Cyberpunk, right? Like,
and it was
buying one.
It was marketed for this gen. I mean,
it was marketed for
it was always planned to only be on.
It is the next gen versions aren't even out, right? It's only because the new consoles can brute force it through backwards compatibility, right? But that's not.
We're seeing the value of it already paying off. Look at that.
Fucking IGN posted 2 different reviews for the PC version and the Xbox.
Yeah, IGN put up their GOTY list, and they included Cyberpunk (PC version)
only. Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like it's unfortunate because it's like, well, they should have done that, right? But it's like from the beginning. But like it's the unfortunate thing of any reviewer is beholden to the publisher, right? You can only get what they give you, and so now I think there maybe just needs to be a thing of being a lot more clear about. This is the PC version. We played on this hardware. Be aware, right? Because I was going to sort of ask this about a wider thing. There was a headline. I didn't read the whole article, so I apologize if there was other points made in there. But essentially, Cyberpunk 2077 is proof that Halo Infinite should not come out on Xbox One, right? And I don't know specifically how I think it all depends on game to game, right? Because we had Destiny come out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, right? This generation. But I feel like in the coming years, in particular, as we make it clear that cross-gen is going to exist longer than we thought, right? God of War Ragnarok is going to be a PS4 game, right? Like, we are going to need to make it especially clear this is this version, and there might be a big difference in comparison to other ones.
I think this conversation's ancillary to the. It's just that CDPR fucked up. It's not that it's impossible to.
Yeah, like I don't know
Sure.
if this is like it's because the PS4 was holding them back. It's just it's not. Just CDPR is incompetent, right? Like their management is stupid and bad.
But what I'm saying is there are going to be games that are like this in the future, right? Like there are going to be poorly managed messes, right? And they might not be as consequential as Cyberpunk.
I don't even know if there's a larger
won't get
thing
covered
to
in
be
that
made
same way.
here, because like also to be fair, like part of the reason why Cyberpunk is such a shit show is because it promised so much, right? It's supposed to be the all game, right? There's so many permutations and there's this and that, and there's so much going on in Cyberpunk. You can live in Night City, you know, and that's not the case for most games, right? That's not the fucking target for a lot of developers, right? Is we're making the all game, right? And so I don't know if maybe like you'll see like more cross-gen games getting canceled because PS4 and Xbox One can't handle them or whatever. Maybe, right? But
which is preferable.
I don't see this as like, I don't know if we can take like a larger thing out of this, like because so much of this is so specific to the developer and the kind of game this is, and all, you know.
But I do think there's a conversation worth having, and I'm not a person that goes after game reviewers. I think that oftentimes that you're aiming at the wrong people when you get mad at reviewers, right? But like, I do think that there was a clear miss that happened here, right? There was some like the structure of how this stuff normally goes failed in this moment, right? And it's like, do you just say we have to trust publishers from now on to do the right thing? Because clearly the one that was the most beloved one in the world didn't do the right thing, right? So like, how do we sort of, as a people that consume news about games and as people that report about news about games, be more clear about here's the ways they might be trying to get the wool over your eyes on this, right?
I would agree, and also I think there's like this underlying inertia in a game this big. Like everyone just expects it to be super super good. That like it's hard not to start the scale at like 9 and go up from there. Yeah,
I mean, and so sort of not a little live in fear a little that you'll be the person that gets guff from the fan base if you're the one that gives the low score, right? I think that's a real thing that happens.
I mean, a lot of it ties back to Gamergate, and there's just like fucking nerds are bad, and a lot of nerds.
Some nerds.
Nerd culture is bad. How about that? Nerd culture is very, very bad, right? And,
a lot of toxic elements.
And especially, like, you talked about, like, the reviewers that are getting shit. And, like, no surprise, they were all women, Those are the people that were getting shit on,
I mean, I didn't mention, but Comically Evil was a Game Informer writer that talked about how there's a specific sequence that can trigger seizures in people. Because it straight up just is using it's like the Porygon episode of Pokemon. It straight up uses the red and white flashing lights that they use to medically induce seizures. Uh-huh. And fans were mad that she wrote that article and tried to send her gifts on seizures, gifts that induce seizures on Twitter, right? And you're like, this is comically evil what you're doing right now. Like, how do you even exist?
There's not even the slightest bit of justification for that. You could say, oh, death threats aren't real threats or whatever. You see all sorts of poor excuses for how it's like.
What?
No, like, just because I say I'm gonna kill you doesn't mean I'm actually gonna, like, the people will come with the dumbest excuses. But, like, this is just so, like, apparently, like, you are actually trying to induce a seizure in this person, right? There's no, like, way you can even spin that in the slightest way. Yeah. These people are bad, like, just, there's no way around it. These people just suck ass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm sure there'll be more to talk about with this as time goes on. But unrelated to both CDPR and to gamers, the gamers spoke out and they said, we don't want to see Devotion. We said we did, we lied. Gamers maybe. So Devotion was a game that came out back in 2018. Was it 2017, 2018? Either way. Horror game, right? But there was a couple of posters, and then in the files of the game especially, there was anti-Xi Jinping, who is the president of China, images, right? Comparing him to Winnie the Pooh, which, if you don't know, people compare him to Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh was banned in China because they use it to make fun of Xi Jinping. This got the game taken down from all major storefronts because of demands from both the CCP themselves, but also people from China that were inundating with harassment towards people until they were taken down. This led to the developer getting their business license stricken. They are from Taiwan. If you know anything about Taiwan and Chinese relations, you'll know that they're fraught, right? I can't just relate the whole history of the world. But GOG, who is owned by CDPR,
I forgot about that connection.
And
CDP actually.
Yeah, and they have had some. They've sort of alluded to some Gamergate stuff in the past, but it's fine. It's in the But they said it's coming back, everyone. We've got Devotion. It's going to be on the storefront. 4 hours later, earlier today, after it was announced the game Devotion is coming to GOG, after receiving many messages from gamers, we have decided to not list the game in our store, which is, I mean, a very meme-worthy excuse. Many messages from gamers.
I'm just, number one, I'm confused as to why this happened now. Like this, I feel like we covered Devotion on this podcast last year when this was all happening.
Yeah,
might have.
I don't remember
it. Why now? But man, that tweet is becoming a meme for good reason.
Yeah.
What a 24-hour period for CD Projekt, huh? Like,
yeah, there's a lot going on, you know.
Going great.
The Cyberpunk 2077 account, back in October, replied to someone saying the whole game will be a meme. They were never more. That was the most honest their marketing has been.
Yep, it was good stuff.
Pretty
good
good
stuff going on.
But we'll turn it to a more positive thing, to a more nice thing. We had an Indie World showcase.
One more piece of news to talk about. What is it? That's right. Indie World. Normally I'm all about Indie World. Just fucking CDPR took up so much time.
Lot going on. So that is, I mean, of course, the actual biggest news is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 is adding Pecan. But we'll leave that for its own.
It's
Pecan. I'm sorry. We'll leave it to its own podcast.
That's our
that'll get a full hour to itself.
Our side podcast. Let's go.
So Indie World was 15 minutes. There was various things we'll get to, but the thing they closed with is the biggest thing, arguably the biggest new announcement Nintendo's had this year. Hey, Among Us, right? Hottest game in the world. It's out today on Nintendo Switch, baby.
That thing is never leaving the eShop charts. Dear God.
No.
Number one already.
And tell me, is that copies or monetary? The eShop charts.
It is copy units sold. So that's all you. Yeah.
Okay, units sold. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see fucking 99-cent games on there.
Sale for 1 cent.
But still.
Yeah.
Very minor thing, by the way. Nintendo has now set a price floor. You cannot go below $2.50.
I didn't know that.
You can't.
Yeah, that happened this week.
What? No, I don't want to see those fucking dollar eShop get those.
Astro Bear Party is ruined.
Goddamn games on the charts, ruining my charts. Do you know how sacred I find sales charts? And they ruined them. They would ruin them with garbage.
But 10 cents can't be 10 cents, man.
10 cents, very powerful company. But Among Us for the Nintendo Switch.
This is a game, and people are like, "Oh, if you want Among Us, haven't you already got it before?"
Who hasn't played Among Us already? The same thing we say about every game.
About Minecraft,
the biggest game in the world.
GTA 5. Like, no, these games will keep selling because there's more people, and especially when you're putting it on a new platform, that's a whole new audience for you to get from. And Among Us is a great fit for the Switch, right? It just is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works pretty well. Like we played some of it. Well, I played the Switch version.
It works well. Yeah, like the tasks work well. Yep. You know, I actually. You
could switch between controller.
So you know, you could do what
instantly.
You prefer
there's
at the time, right?
Nice.
I mean, I definitely find it a better control scheme than the PC version personally. Just because I will always prefer an analog stick over keyboard keys.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm also just an idiot when it comes to like doing two things. You know, if I bring up my map, I'm not moving around on PC. Whereas now I'm loosey goosey while I'm staring at where I need to go.
It makes sense for the Switch, right? And this is a game that it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest game in the world right now, right? Over 500 million users. So this is a big announcement. Huge announcement. I bought it. Ills bought it. Will bought it. Brandon did not buy it.
No, I didn't. But I mean,
let's throw rocks at him.
I bought on PC, and I already bought on PC, and on top of that, it's coming to Game Pass next year.
No one cares about Xbox. We're here for Indie World, okay? Get out of here with your dog shit Xbox, okay? We shilled them enough.
Oh my god!
Right,
it's coming out though.
What else was that?
It's still news, motherfucker. Eat my ass. I thought we were a news
opened with Spelunky 1 and 2 are coming to Nintendo Switch.
Spelunky 2 is not on Xbox. Number 1.
Summer 2021. Spelunky 2 is a PS4 exclusive at the time
because I did not want to play Spelunky on my PlayStation. I really loved Spelunky 1 on the Vita. The Vita, it can finally be laid to rest,
R.I.P.
It's finally here. Putting 1 and 2 was kind of a surprise. I was only expecting 2, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I question. I almost felt like I wonder what will come first, because both are just the generic summer 2021. Because sometimes I feel like it would almost be smarter, and maybe this is a whole porting problem, maybe it's not feasible, but of like, because I think there's probably a 6-month exclusivity window for like Spelunky 2, right? Or however long it is on the PlayStation, so summer's probably the earliest they can get it. Spelunky 1, though, I feel like putting both games out around the same time. Right? You do like Spelunky 1, 3 a month.
Spelunky 1 would have been shadow dropped, right? With the Spelunky 2 announcement. But, it's okay. I'll wait for Spelunky. I don't know if I'll buy the first game. It depends on how far they are apart, I guess.
They should just sell them together for like the same price as Spelunky.
That would also, I would buy a pack of them as well. That'd be swell. I would like that. But definitely Spelunky and the Switch. I mean, come on, it just makes sense, right? Come on, Switch. Yeah. Switch owners love platformers. They love roguelites. Mash them together. Yeah.
And everyone that has played Spelunky 2 swears by it.
It's a good game. I'm sure. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm excited for it.
I don't know how many they have left, but they continue to draw from the Apple Arcade well with Grindstone. This was an Apple Arcade exclusive by the people at Capybara Games.
Really highly recommended Apple Arcade game that got no traction because it was an Apple Arcade game. But now it's on the Switch and now we care about it, I bought it because why not? It's on it's on the Switch. I've heard good things. Oh, sure, it's like what is like a puzzle. I don't know how you describe it.
You are beating people up, but it's like a grid, and you plot out the path of your destruction, right? Basically on that grid, and you try to clear the levels, basically, right? But there's like there's over 200 levels, right? Like there's a lot, a game there, and that's another one that people that played it all swore by, but only 5 people played. So hopefully it'll get a new audience here. Super Meat Boy Forever continues to be a shame on our industry, and
just because it's gonna lose you fantasy.
Just because it looks unfortunately it looks very good.
It's surprisingly actually genuinely I'm when you hear auto runner, your brain just shuts off, right? You're just like, I don't give a shit, right?
Wow. Don't care about Bit Trip Runner. I can't believe.
But I mean, that is to say, like, right? Like, auto runners can be really good. You're right. And this one looks surprisingly good. I don't know. I still don't think this is what people want in a Super Meat Boy 2, right? Certainly not.
No.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's
I guess it's not Super Meat Boy 2, right? It's Super Meat Boy Forever. And why not? If it's good, I might pick it up.
Yeah. And then besides that, there was Calico, which we have seen a couple times. Is the game where you're riding on a cat, making a nice cafe. There's magic girls. It looks neat. It's out today. I'm happy that it came out. I wonder. I'm very curious. Grief aside, because Calico was in like 4 presentations this year. I think it was in like it was all over the place. How do you think outreach goes for indie developers wanting to get showcased?
Well,
right? Do you think it's the publisher?
From
or do you think
interviews
the
that I've read about like indie developers talking about being at these shows and whatever. I mean, there's obviously just a huge variety of ways, right? But some of that, a lot of the times, it's they scrounged up every penny they had, got a booth at PAX, and then someone from Nintendo or Microsoft or whoever noticed it at PAX and reached out to them and made something happen, right? Or even someone like Epic, right? They see the game, or maybe it's just like in the process of getting their game on a platform, right? They have meetings with Nintendo or they have meetings with whoever, right? And then in that, whoever their contact is, they're just really impressed by that and they pass it on and whatever, right? There's a lot of different ways that these things happen. There was, Raji, which came out,
I was gonna bring that
up, a couple months back in the last, I guess at the last Indie World, right? Yeah, it was a shadow drop for the Switch. Yeah. And I read this really interesting interview where they talk about how like this game it's a miracle that A, it even came out, right? But B, that they were able to get officially marketed by Nintendo and all that. But part of it was because they literally, like I said earlier, like they scrounged up every penny they had to just get a shot by, and it's crazy because PAX, like so many fucking games are there, especially indie games, right? It's so easy to get just swallowed in the sea of things, right? But because they had that booth, or not, they had their booth at PAX, someone at Epic Games noticed them, and then they reached out to Epic hooked them up with one of their partners. And because they already had a pre-established relationship because it's on the Unreal Engine. And so Epic got it done where they're like, hey, we'll get you a publisher and we'll get you in talks with these people. And that's how kind of everything went in motion. Sometimes it's just luck, I guess,
Yeah.
Luck has to do with a lot of things.
Yeah.
With you getting noticed.
Well, because the thing that I was curious about, because I feel like I've noticed it more in indie worlds, is I feel like they've made a concerted effort to showcase people from different countries, right, and games from different countries.
Yeah, they do.
Because I don't know I've pardon the pronunciation, I don't remember how they said it in the presentation, but like Tunchi, I don't know how you say it. Anyways, it's a 2D breed 'em up game set in the Amazon rainforest, right? And you're playing as it seems like a family, right? But then also the hat kid from Hat in Time's also there.
So random.
But that looked very pleasant to look at. Super neat. And beat 'em ups are fun.
Hack and slash
like fun
kind of deal. It looks really neat. I'm super into it.
Pulling from Peruvian folklore in particular, they said, so interesting. Then there was a few other games. Very, Very Valet and Fisty Fluffs are both games that are in that wacky co-op genre of indie game, right? One of them, you beat up cats, like Gang Beasts with cats. The other one, you're trying to drive a car. Wacky to backy. And then there was also Alba, a wildlife adventure. And pardon if I just missed this in the presentation, but in the press release they mentioned, this is the Monument Valley developers that are making this.
I saw that in the press release afterwards. That's kind of crazy because Monument Valley, that was one of the games that really took off on the App Store, right? It was like, mobile games can be real, you guys, and then mobile games went back to being shit after that. But for a brief moment, there was this idea that mobile games could be real games, and I think that also kind of shows you where those kind of developers are now, right? They're on Switch. That's just the Switch is the platform to be for indies, just period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's pretty. And then there was last. Speaking of letting the Vita die, Genosha, is that how you say it?
Is the G silent? I
say
Nosha, G is silent.
Nosha,
but I think
they say Genosha.
They said Genosha, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said Genosha in the stream.
So this was a game that came out. I think it was 2018.
It came out last year, actually, just last
year. 2019.
And the whole deal was we're gonna make a game. We really believe in this game, right? We think this game is amazing, but the only way we're gonna get noticed, because there's just so many games coming out on every platform known to man, right? We gotta go and be on a platform that has such a small user base with nothing coming out, right? And that's how we'll get noticed. And it worked. You know, they came out last year, and IGN Japan gave it a 10 out of 10. It got like all these rave reviews from Japanese players, right? And so like all these people suddenly noticed, oh shit, like you hear that really, really great Vita game? You know, this Vita game got a 10 out of 10, you know? And that's kind of how it blossomed. And then Nintendo noticed it. They got a port to Switch, still Japan only, but now it's going to the West.
Mm-hmm. And sort of the pitch of it is it's Among Us. That's just what it is.
Hey, let's give credit to what inspired Among Us, right? It is though this is single player, which is interesting, but it is like a mafia werewolf style of game, right?
Yeah. I imagine also it takes pretty heavy inspiration from The Thing, right? This alien can take on the appearance of humans, right? And sort of you have to deduce who's the alien, who's not, right? So your brain probably, as a visual novel, so your brain immediately probably goes to Danganronpa, right? But what the trailer sort of shows is like there's cycles, like you go through multiple times and it's a different person each time, right? And now how that ties into the wider narrative, I don't know. It's a mystery, right? So I probably don't want to give it away, but I think both having the reputation it has and having I think an intriguing premise, I'm very interested when that comes out, because visual novels just feel better on the Nintendo Switch.
I played 13 Sentinels on my PS5 and I've been having a terrible time because I don't want to play that game on my fucking television. Put it on the side. Put it out. Yeah, so I've been following this game forever, so I was so excited to see a localization of this game. Very, very excited. There was another game in there, though, by the way. Cyber Shadow. Yeah,
I'm sorry, Cyber Shadow.
Forever. Yacht Club's publishing it, right? So they're not making it, but they noticed this game. They're like, hey, we'll help you. We'll help you get this out. You can even scan the Shovel Knight amiibos in there. They mentioned, right?
Here's a little fairy behind you. Yeah.
But yeah, it has a release date, January. It's soon, next month.
January 26th.
Very much
2021. Yeah,
it was supposed to come out this year.
Yeah, goddamn. Much like a lot of things, but
things happen.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did leave out one. I'm not looking at the press release. Happy Game, which I think I blocked out mentally because it was just too spooky.
Oh, that game looked really cool.
Yeah. So that once again, Indie Worlds, always just a fun treat.
And then in the Japanese stream, they shadow dropped Dicey Dungeons.
Yes, but they didn't do it in the American stream.
So for some reason, they waited till the Japanese version of Indie World, which was aired a couple hours later. So same day, really weird that it wasn't in the American presentation. But yeah, they
because it had been leaked that it was coming out before anyway.
To come out that day, and then so when Indie World ended, I was like, what? Where's Dicey Dungeons? But no, yeah, later that day, lo and behold, it did end up coming out like at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, afternoon. And I bought it, and but the Switch. Very fun game. I'm liking it a lot. I played a little bit of it on PC, but it's a very good fit for Switch.
Yeah.
Very good fit for Switch.
If you don't know, I guess Terry Kavanagh is most well known for probably Super Hexagon and VVVVVV. Which, if you don't know what that is, that sounds insane.
Two very good games. Let's just put it that way.
But so strong pedigree, and that game's been out for a year.
What are the three games share in common? Great soundtracks.
They do. Bangers. So yeah. That one you don't have to worry about picking up. You know it's good. So that was the news for this week in general. Lot of big and small. The biggest of the AAA, the smallest of the indies. That's what we handle here.
It's the indies,
Think about it. But you know where we really get what we want? On the list.
The list.
That's a lie. Only typically like one person
More or
knows they
less.
want on the list. And even then, most of the time they don't.
The list is where nobody's
So
happy.
last week, no, everyone is sad.
No,
What
I'm happy
got put on the list last week?
Saf added something. Super Meat Boy.
Super Meat Boy.
Ah, look at that.
Saf added Super Meat
Topical
Boy.
again.
Fresh. It got pretty high, huh?
60.
60. That's pretty high on a list of over 232 video games that you can follow along in the pace bin below, because every week we add a game to this list. It's not the top 100. It's not top 232. There's good, there's bad, there's weird, there's Game Club, which is mostly also weird on this list. But Moozamil, you're bringing a game this week.
That is me. I am bringing one of my favorite games of all time, so I am bound to be sad this week. Speaking of visual novels, huge fan of visual novels, and this is the franchise that probably kicked it off, for me anyway. Ace Attorney 3, Trials and Tribulations is the American title. Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Trials and Tribulations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I started out strong. Like, this is one of my favorite games of all time. I think this has some of the best writing I've just ever. I am someone who, sometimes notoriously, will shit on video game writing, and I will tell you to go read a book, right? Ace Attorney makes me think differently. That maybe, just maybe, video games are an art form that can be respected. You know. Because the writing.
You see the man with the laser goggles.
Rolling my eyes so hard
art
right now. I can't believe you.
I know, I'm aware. I just had to get that out there. No, but genuinely, like, the writing is just so strong in Trials and Tribulations. You know, it is so hard for any story, not even just a video game story, but any story to properly wrap up, especially in the form of a trilogy, right? How many times can you go back and think of something, not necessarily just trilogy, but just anything, right? Where a long-running franchise, and you get to the end, and the end disappoints you, right? It fucks up the ending. There's so many things you could think of, right? How often is it like the ending is really just so perfect, wraps up the franchise so perfectly, right? Puts everything that ever happened across the three games just completely in context in a way that makes sense, the way that satisfies you, you know? It's very good.
Now, Ills has not played it, right?
Nerp. He stopped at 2.
That's correct.
He stopped at Justice for All.
I mean,
Yeah, I know
stopped.
you did
It
like
made
Justice
me
for
stop.
All. Yes,
It
I know.
don't let
I get
me
it.
fucking start.
I
right?
already know what you think.
Rank Justice for All if you want to hear me talk about it.
I don't want to.
No, I want to be careful because I do, I don't want to give too much
No,
away.
we should not spoil. That's for sure because it is.
I can just leave
No.
if you want me.
Even for our
I don't want to
listeners,
spoil it for the
even
people
for our
listening.
listeners, like it is a story worth like encountering on your own. You don't want to get this spoiled.
Yeah.
But
That's why specifics are hard.
Keep it in your pants.
I'm trying to be
Keep it in your
specific.
pants,
Well, I'm not even trying to be specifics. I'm trying to say, like, things that it does well do tie into spoilers a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I think it is a game that makes the first 2 games better.
Yeah.
I think it's a game that it makes me, I was like, oh, they were taking this world more seriously than I thought they were. And even though there is some very wacky twists and turns, as is the case with all Phoenix Wright games, I think they balance that knife's edge a lot of, like, during some of these trials, you're like, oh man, this is very high stakes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am worried at the result.
I mean, some of the highest stakes in the franchise, right? Just like it's.
Yeah. There is, I think, a mixed bag in terms of bringing up characters from the main cast's past. I think some of them work really well, some of them don't, right? I think Godot is a big success by and large, right? I think he's a good counter, right? Because obviously both Miles and what's her name? Francisca. like both good, right? Miles is better than Francisca, but I think both of them good. I think Godot easily slots himself in there. He's also a good counterpoint for a lot of the game. And so I think that, yeah, like you said, the writing is the strongest. How do you feel about the additional gameplay things they add on, right? Because the Cyclops were in 2, right?
Though they did make the Cyclops far, far better than they were in 2. Because A, just the answers are a lot more obvious in 3. But B, I don't remember the specifics, but the penalty is very different, very reduced in Trials and Tribulation.
I mean, it's been like 10
years. I can't tell you specifics off the top of my head, but I know for a fact like the penalty is like almost non-existent compared to 2, where you could get a game over state many times, and you will many times. But no, so that like the whole role of Psylocke is just very much reduced, right?
Yeah.
From a gameplay perspective, I don't remember how much that they added, to be honest.
I don't think they do. That's what I was trying to remember.
It's very much a sequel that just takes what the previous 2 games had, right? And you know, Phoenix Wright is not a game particularly known for gameplay, right? Especially like the direct action that you're taking, right? Like, not much. But still, I still find it to be a story that can. I wouldn't enjoy this story in a different medium, right? I think this is. I think they do a good job of writing to the strengths of like this is like only a video game could tell a story like this, right? Like the way you feel engaged in court, right? Even the investigative segments, right? It's very much a thing that you can only do in a video game, which I always appreciate, right? Those are always the things that stick in my brain as like the top of the medium, right? At least in terms of story and writing, right? Like, and so I always appreciate that. Yeah, I don't have a lot of negative to say about this game.
Like I said, I think some of the twists and turns, I was like, okay, we're teetering on going off the rails a little bit, right? Like there are some ones, and it's weird to say about Phoenix Wright because Phoenix Wright was always goofy, right? But like I said, when you heighten the stakes, suddenly these twists and turns you sort of become more like critical of a little bit, right? But I would say that 90% of the time it ends up wavering on the side of being for the betterment rather than the detriment of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like I think we all agree this is the best one of the Phoenix Wright games.
Wright of all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would maybe think Investigations too, but again, I'm the one who's played that game, so.
And we don't believe in piracy, Muzamil. We're good little boys and girls.
True.
We don't believe in anything that never came out.
The Game Club has definitely never pirated or played a game that never came out. Don't you worry about it.
Don't talk about the Game Club if you're not part of
it. But yeah, I guess you could say like I will say like the biggest detriment, quote unquote, to this game is the two filler cases, right? Mm-hmm. Which I still enjoy. I will take to my grave that the filler cases in Ace Attorney are still good, right? They're charming.
Even the fifth one.
I'm not fucking saying all of them.
Yeah, that one too.
I'm saying that I know some people just as a concept, they're like, no, Phoenix Wright the cases should always be advancing the plot forward. Right, and I fundamentally disagree with that take.
Yeah, I disagree.
Right,
because you got to show Phoenix having like some wins, some non as high stake wins, and like to build his reputation
as a lawyer, right? Like a
lawyer, yeah.
And sometimes, like a lot of them are just fun, right? And I think in 3, none of them are like Justice for All. I could go on and on about how much I fucking hate the clown case.
The circus.
Right? The
circus case.
It's the worst. It is the goddamn worst.
The circus case is
the worst.
Is exhausting.
It is the worst case in the history of the franchise, right?
Yes.
I love the clown.
And it's just bad, right? But like I don't find like I found the filler cases in Trials of Tribulation to be at worst passable, but I enjoyed them. I genuinely did enjoy them in this game.
I don't remember hating any of them. And it's been 10 years, so I think I agree with you.
Yeah, because I think the thing is, do those filler cases introduce interesting characters and interesting things for like the main cast to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the two filler cases do, right? They're either fun to solve or they're like, oh, it's fun to see Phoenix in this situation, even if it's not building to the conclusion in a huge way, right?
Yeah.
So,
boy, when you get to that conclusion, oh, geez, oh, Lord.
So, where do you want it?
I sincerely don't want to rank this game. I'm only adding it so Ills plays it because I can force him to play it through New Year's resolutions.
So you want it in hell just because you don't care.
I want it in hell.
Now, spoiler alerts for the New Year's episode. Or, well, New Year's stream, right? It's going to be a stream.
This is a stream.
New Year's stream. I will be giving Ills this game to play.
I mean, I put the idea in your head.
You did.
It's my fault, really.
I want it... Oh, this is hard. Okay. I already know I'm starting way ahead of everyone else. So let's just get that out of the way.
All right.
But I want it above Donkey Kong Country 2.
Wow.
I mean, Moozamill.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you start there? You could have set the game above it, right?
I haven't played Suikoden, so I don't know.
I mean, I would put it above Cuphead and Mario Kart 8.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna start higher, but I was already going lower. But yeah, I'd put it.
I think Splatoon 2 and Celeste is where I started to slow down.
Sure.
And probably stop, but
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely put it above Mario Kart though, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. I love Suikoden 2. You know I do. We talked a long time about it on the Game Club Extra.
No, you hate it.
I do. Secretly, it's
you didn't shoot your shot in the Game Club Extra, so you fucked yourself.
Well, I did. But I do think, even removing all, it's hard to compare apples to oranges, right? Because I think Suikoden 2 has a lot more gameplay features, right? But as we had a conversation about, I think that some of the aspects of the ending, it sort of stumbles a little bit, right? And I think a strong ending can really elevate a game. And I think that Phoenix Wright does that over it. So I would put it above that. And then, personally, I just think Cuphead's too high in general. So I don't mind putting it above it.
What?
That's dumb. I don't agree with that. You
What?
think Cuphead's too high?
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole.
I think when we first ranked it, I said that.
We're distracting from the point. Where are we putting?
No, but the point being, I'm fine with it. Also, and also Mario Kart 8, I think it's an incredible Mario Kart. But
Mario Kart can't make you feel the way that.
It's a real.
Well, that's not true. There's people that can make a lot of feelings out of Mario Kart.
How do we feel above or below Celeste?
I feel not. No. Okay. I would put it underneath Uncharted 2. That would be my choice.
Strong disagreement. I put you put it exactly I put it exactly where you would hate it. So you did the exact same thing to me. Where
Shovel Knight is crying right now.
It was already bad enough when you guys put Uncharted right above Kid Icarus. If you do this to me again with Uncharted, God help me.
That was a good moment.
Uncharted 2 is Uncharted 2 is one of my favorite games. I love that game.
I think below Celeste.
Phoenix Wright.
Yeah, I'm good with below Celeste though. I'm perfect with slotting it in right in between those two games.
Because I think Celeste has a good. You said before, Celeste narratives that fit well in the medium of a video game. I think Celeste does that well. And
I love Mario Kart 8.
Also, just an impeccable platform.
I fucking love this game, but above Mario Kart 8 feels wrong to me.
I feel really good about it.
Can I tell you? I was replaying Mario Kart 8, and can I tell you my little hot take?
Oh,
I think
I'm gonna hate it.
I think the new tracks that aren't DLC tracks, bangers. But a lot of the new tracks in the base game are like only okay.
Yeah,
but they are elevated by the old tracks.
Like
being
in the
so
base
good.
game. No, I guess we're just getting off track here. But in the base game, I legitimately think Mario Kart 7 had better tracks than Mario Kart 8. And you want those tracks to be Mario Kart 8 because it's so much prettier, right?
And plays better.
Better.
Rainbow Road sucks.
But yeah, Rainbow Road and Mario Kart is just bad. It really is just bad. But yeah, that's a whole. Okay. All right. Anyway. Well, it seems like we've ranked Phoenix right. I
mean, it didn't seem like you guys were moving, so I put it in.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I feel good about where we put it. I said I was going to be sad, but I'm not sad.
29 on the list. Not sad. Surrounding it, 27, Splatoon 2, 28, Celeste, 29, Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Trials and Tribulation, 30, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and 31, Cuphead. That is the list. That is the podcast. We've done it once again. Every day they try to stop us. They are unable to.
The gamers.
You can make sure the gamers. They continue every day.
They tell us every day, we want you to delist devotion. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep it going.
We have frequently been described as the devotion of podcasts. Who would like to do plugs and final phrases that will get us in trouble with mainland China?
I'll do final phrase, I guess.
Oh, Ills?
Oh, good, because I was going to nominate Ills to do that.
Cool. Oh, I can do the plugs. And I'm going to take this time to say, hey, gamers. Sorry if you don't agree with the list. We're going to have to change the list around on the next re-rank because a lot of gamers wrote to us and they were unhappy about it. So we'll do that in January during the Royal Ranking. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you go to twitch.tv/JumpUpSupercast if you want to follow. I'm going to do that first. Usually I save that to the end. But
you know what? We're prioritizing the Twitch today,
Hey, yeah, seriously, go follow us on Twitch.
When this podcast goes live, I will be streaming Super Mario Galaxy,
Maybe.
No, hold me to it. When this podcast goes up, I will be streaming Mario Galaxy.
What are you going to do? Listen to the podcast or fucking watch Muzzy stream? Who knows? I would say watch Muzzy stream because that's going to be live.
Yeah, you can listen to the podcast later.
Yeah, but anyway, either way, go to twitch.tv/JumpUpSupercast and make sure you give us a follow. And if we're live, come talk to us, hang out, play some video games or whatever. Just hang out with us. And if you enjoy the Jump Up Supercast, make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast listening service of your choice, including SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. New episodes of the Jump Up Supercast go up every single Monday. We also have another show called the Jump Up Supercast Game Club, where every other Thursday we talk about a single game for about an hour or so. And this upcoming episode is about Fallout, the original Fallout, the first one. We're going to be talking about that. And next we have a Patreon pick coming up after that. So we do have a Patreon, and if you want to support the podcast, you can go to find us, just search Jump Up Supercast. And for just $1 a month, you get to choose a Game Club game. And that's going to be what we're doing next. In fact, I'm going to raffle that off tonight. So you're going to be late. You're going to miss this one. But we do it every round where we go around. So if you want to choose a game for us to play, you can do that. We also have a Discord you can join and talk to us about games. So please, if you want to support us, $1 a month, I mean, that would be, we would all love you very much, more than we already do. And you can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay up to date. Everything Jump Up Supercast related. Every time we post an episode, we post it on social media. So if you want to, make sure you stay up to date and you're on your socials all the time, give us a follow. We'd appreciate that too. So Ills, thank you. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Before I hand it off to Ills, I just want to say thank you guys. We appreciate you. Go play some video games and be nice to each other. And listen to what Ills has to say real quick.
So, I'm actually kind of looking forward to playing this game next year, and I think I'm just going to buy the trilogy on Switch and play through all of them again, since Will said they all go together nicely, so I'm looking forward to that.